The Charlotte Ledger Podcast is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
Hey, it's Christina Bowling from the Charlotte Ledger, and you're listening to the Charlotte Ledger Podcast. Today, we've got a podcast for the book lovers among us. We're talking to Charlotte Mecklenburg Library Director Marcellus Turner, who goes by the name MT, about all things library. It's a conversation we recorded at the Sharon at South Park Retirement Community, and we had a great time breaking down lots of interesting topics, from how the role of the library has changed in communities like Charlotte to what we can expect from the new main library that'll open in Charlotte in 2026. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
I wanted to start off just by getting a little bit of information about your journey. I understand that you fell in love with libraries in the fourth grade. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, what it's been like, what your career's been like, and what led you to this work.
Sure. Well, I am happy to be here with you this afternoon. And as you shared, I have been doing libraries for a long time. In fact, when I was growing up in elementary school in Mississippi, once you reached the fourth grade, they required every student to be assigned to some office within the school system. And in the fourth grade, I got the library. And so I checked out books. It was with the date due stamp and all of that you might remember. And I absolutely loved it. As I matriculated through school, I went to Mississippi University for Women, which is always a shock. I was one of the 23 men at Mississippi University for Women. And I majored in speech pathology and audiology. And while in graduate school, I stayed in off-campus housing. And in the complex that I lived in, we were in pods. And there were 3 library science majors, and I was a speech pathology major. And I had the only car. And that's how I became a librarian. I started hanging out with library science majors, and they would say, "Can you drop me off at the dorm? Can you take me to school?" And I would do that. And after a while, one day, I actually was with them one day, and they said, "Don't leave. We're just going to be 5 minutes." So I followed them in the building, sat down at their counseling office, and I was just thumbing through the book of jobs, and I said, "I can do that." And I switched majors right then and became a library science major. I started out in academics, working at universities. And after a point, I was library instruction librarian, so I taught people how to use the library. And after a point, 8 years of doing that, you got tired of seeing the same term papers. And I was like, there has to be a better life than doing this the rest of my life. And I switched over to public libraries, and I have been doing that ever since. I was very fortunate to choose cities that I wanted to live in. I know you'll hear the cities and then you'll be like, why would anyone want to live there? But my first public job was in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And we had people who would come in every day and check out all of the books on gambling just to try to figure out how to win. And the casinos would call you about once a week and they'd say, "We have your books here. Can you come get them?" And they would take them on the floor with them and try to read the book while they were gambling. And it was just a cycle that we were in, but people would come in thinking they could learn how to gamble rather quickly. But I did that. I left there and went to Washington State to Tacoma Public Library. And then from there, I went to Rockford, Illinois, and then to Lakewood, Colorado, Jefferson County Public Library, Columbine. That was my library, if you didn't know about it. And then I went to Seattle, and I stayed there for 10 years till this lucky opportunity came along.
What is it about Charlotte that made you want to move here?
So I probably gave the worst interview that you can ever give in a interview for a job. They asked me to be a part of the search, and I joined it. And I knew a little bit about the South. I knew a little bit about Charlotte. I'm from Mississippi, so I was glad to be back on this side of the country. I knew Charlotte from long ago as being a very leading library system, so I was excited about that. They were doing really great things. But you know how an interview goes. They ask you questions, and then they say, "Do you have any questions for us?" And the only thing I could think of was, how warm does it get here? That was the only thing I was worried about, is how hot would it be to move to Charlotte? because living in Seattle, you learn to live with rain, but you don't ever have to really deal with heat. And so I was very worried about that. But again, it was those types of things. It was the fact that it was back on South. It was in the South. It was the fact that Charlotte was a leading library system. They were building a new library. Every librarian should have an opportunity to build a new library. So that was exciting for me. They were doing really great work, had great numbers, leading in the state. So it was just a wonderful opportunity. It was in the middle of the pandemic. And I did, like a lot of people, I woke up one morning and said, I can do something else. And so I looked at Charlotte, and fortunately for me, it worked out.
So a lot has happened since you came, and we were talking about that a minute ago. I want to get to the main library at some point, but I know there's been a new University City building. There's going to be a new Sugar Creek building coming up. Can you talk about like the growth or the changes in these branches and, what is kind of maybe on the horizon? Is it outdated buildings that need to be refurbished? Do we need libraries now in locations that we didn't need them before, or what's kind of happening regionally?
Sure. It's a combination of a couple of things. One, we have really great libraries, 21 in our system. We had a facilities master plan done right when I arrived. It was being completed in 2021. And it revealed that we needed actually 31 libraries to meet the needs of this city. So I won't see 10 libraries built, but over the time, we're scheduled to add 10 more. But it's a combination of two or three things. The first one is that we have locations, we call them library deserts, location within the Mecklenburg County area that just aren't served well by a library. We have a premise that we like to be within 15 minutes of any resident should be 15 minutes from a location. So there are some areas that we're not serving very well. But some of the others, we are reimagining them because they are dated a little bit, but also because some of them are just not the size that we need. And you referenced University City, and University City went from about 23,000 square feet to 36,000 square feet. So it's pretty big. So if you haven't had a chance to visit it, I would encourage you to get out and see it. It's absolutely wonderful. It has a second floor to it, and it has a horse inside of it. So if you've never seen a horse in a library, I encourage you to go see it. It's actually a piece of art. And I know everyone's looking like a real horse. No, but it is a piece of art, a stunning piece. You can probably see it online if you wish to do so. But that one is in response to growth. Pineville, we just didn't have a library in that area, so we were able to put one back there. And so we're looking at it from that perspective.
So for University City, for example, that we need you're saying there's a need for a larger space. What is it because there's more books and materials, or why do the libraries need to be bigger?
Sure. So there are a couple of reasons. One, growth was really big, but in fairness, I guess I should back up and say that we were leasing that space from the Atrium Health, and so they needed their property back. And they had worked with us for years and were very gracious in allowing us to be there. But at some point, we knew that we were building a new library, and we just really moved to do that. Please don't ask me where we're located. We're off J.W. Clay. I know that much. We're right beside the Hilton and the Applebee's. I can take you to it. I just can't tell you how to get there. I am very much geographically challenged. But it's also a combination of growth, parking. We needed more parking spaces. But inside the building, we're doing so much more than what we were traditionally doing. Yes, there was a need for more books, technology, computers. We needed meeting spaces. The public just really needed a space to meet. And so we had a large community room, but we also needed some study rooms for them. We're just doing more in that particular space, and we were getting more customers coming to visit us. So that's really what drove University City.
So I wanted to talk about the main library. I know there's been a lot of interest in that. What can you tell us about what the components are going to be of it, when it's going to open, and just sort of what that building is going to be like once it opens?
So you probably know that this new building that we're building will be the third building on that particular site. All of our libraries have been on that site since the very first Carnegie in 1903. So we're really excited to keep the same address. The second iteration of the building put the address or the entrance to the library on 6th Street. We're moving back to Tryon, so the front of the library will be back on Tryon. We have not had to change our address since 1903, so we're really excited about that. But this will be a total redo. We have torn down Old Main, and we have an actual new building going up. If you go to our website, you can see images of it. It will be 6 floors. 1 floor is staff only. and it is in the lowest level. They keep reminding me, in case you didn't know, we have a gentleman here with me who's my handler. They don't send me out to talk alone, but he's back there, and they say, don't call the basement the basement. We have a floor that is below level, that is level 0, but that is where staff will have their offices, and all 5 floors will be open to the public. And that building is just really exciting. It will be smaller than the former building, but it will be all public. It will be all public. There will be no offices for me or any of the administrative team, collections, and the team that buy the books for us. They will be offsite. This will truly be a public serving facility. Some of the things that we're excited about there, in case any of you are wondering, many of you know there was a Romare Beard and Peace that was hanging in there. It is safe. We took it down, and in fact, they were so worried about it, they tore the whole wall out to get it out of the building. And I think they just wrapped the whole wall up in plastic, but it is stored, but it will come back to the new main library. We'll also have 5 floors. It will have an atrium. I'm talking about the architectural features first, and then I'll talk about some of the structure, but it will have an atrium that opens all the way up to the 5th floor with a skylight. So light will come in. It will have 2 entrances. It will have the Tryon Street entrance, but it will also have a mid-block plaza. So we're coming in midway of 6th Street into that area. And it will run what you may remember about Spirit Square and that building. We're actually attaching to it. So the entrance to the McGlowan Theater will be through the main library on Tryon, and also into what was then known as the Duke Theater. Both of those will be accessible from the main entrance doors on Tryon Street. It will also have a café. We're really excited about that, so people can partake of some light food and beverages during their stay at the library, but also as you partake of some of the amenities of the city, like the Carolina Theater or some of those things. If you wanted to come over and get a coffee before or after that will be really great. We will have a makerspace for those who love to tinker. You can build things. We'll have a space for that. We will have an immersive theater where we will actually be able to portray images and information on them, and you can actually interact with it so that you can move things around to get the information you need. And then we will have a digital visualization lab, which is a lab with a 270-degree panoramic view of screens where you can actually come in and look at information transferred across those images. So we're really excited about that. For those of you who remember the Robinson Spangler Carolina room where we keep the history of Mecklenburg County, that will come back into this building with a bigger space. And I'm trying to think, the books will come back. We will have art in there. We have a wonderful piece of public art that is being commissioned by Tiffany Massey, who's out of Detroit. She is working on a piece for us that will just be absolutely stunning. We'll have lots of meeting rooms. We have 15 meeting rooms or meeting spaces in there. Some of them are 2-seaters for people who just want to work independently, but we can seat up to 40 people in our meeting room. So we're really excited about that. And then on the 5th floor is the destination level, and it is just a big open space. And we're really excited about that because during downtimes, we will be able to have pop-up programs and services there, but we will also just have casual seating there. But should there be a need for someone to host an event up there, we can seat up to 220 people on that floor. So we're really excited about all of that that's coming in New Maine. And those of us who work behind the scenes, who pay the bills and turn the lights on and order the books, we will not be in that building. So it will be all just for the public.
So you referenced some things that aren't what we might have years ago thought of as like traditional things that the library does, like meeting spaces, events, maker spaces, and things like that. Can you talk about how the role of the library in society has really changed over the years?
Oh gosh, I have many years of saying how the library has changed because I don't know if you know this, but the people who work in libraries, we're the most painfully polite profession there is. We accept whatever comes at us. We're really excited about it. But with that comes a lot of change. And so the role that libraries are playing now is, let me back up and say this. I have one role, one mission, one job when I came to this system, and I've had it every year. That one job is to ensure that Charlotte Mecklenburg Library makes a difference in the lives of our users. That's my only job. If you meet me and you say something, I can say, well, let me tell you how the library can help you with that. That's my one job. So over the years and over time, libraries have had to adapt to how we provide access to information, and that's really big for us. We provide information in book format, but we also do it in programs. Programs are really big for us. The community, everyone doesn't want to read a book to learn. They want to come in and hear from speakers, hear from authors. So we have to increase the opportunities for that to occur. But we also know that people want to engage with each other. They don't want to just come and listen, so they want, after they hear a great speaker, they want to be able to go and talk to them about it. Go use our café. That's what it will be there for. But we also are fortunate that we're partnering with the theaters. So people will go to the theaters and we can do book programs about that. So that's one of the others. Some of the things that you see in libraries that are changing a little bit right now, but access to technology. There are many people in our community who do not have computers or who do not know how to use the computers. Or, as I often say, kids think they're very creative and decide to get their parents some technology, and the parents are like, I really don't know how to use this. Could you help me with it? So we do a lot of teaching in our libraries with that. So our role in that has become really big. But we are also one of the last sources of where you can find accurate information. And so we really do provide access to information and what it means there. We'll have tons of books and books on every topic. As I often say to everyone, we have something to offend everyone. So we have books on every subject that you can imagine. And so that's how libraries are changing.
It's great. When you were talking about events, it made me think about, you just had very recently a very popular author, Julia Quinn, I think, right?
Julia Quinn. Yes. Julia Quinn was really exciting for us. I had never met her. I have never watched Bridgerton. I have never read the book.
She's the author of the Bridgerton series, right?
She's the author of the Bridgerton series. But 600 other people had read her book because they showed up for her. And so it was really exciting about that to have her here. But people want to connect with authors. It's not just reading a book anymore. You really want to get into their mind and understand, what were you really thinking about, or how did you create that? I think authors are some of the most creative minds. J.K. Rowling is one of them. I'm reading some Sarah J. Maas right now, and I never thought I would read romantically. But it's really exciting what people are willing to read, but they want to connect with the authors. And so it's really exciting to have that opportunity to do that.
Can you talk about, speaking of authors, any trends that you're seeing, or what's popular? What are people reading these days? I know romance, we've written about it a bit in the Ledger, is big, but what people are seeing.
Sure. So I have a lot of wonderful opportunities to connect and engage with staff. And one day we were marching in the St. Patrick's Day parade uptown. And I was just talking with a colleague while we were waiting, and he said, OMT, you have to read Sarah Maas. And I said, what is that about? And it's romantasy. It's romance along with fantasy and all of these created kingdoms and all of that. And I have a colleague who said, if there's a map in the front of the book, I'm not reading it. But I'm addicted. I am addicted. If you have not, this is the author. I'll never get the titles right because I do judge a book by its cover. But the title is something like The Court of Thorns and Roses. Trust me, it is great reading. It is really good. But romantasy is one of them. Kristen Hanna, some of you may have read The Women. I read one book of hers. It was a very good book. A very good book. I listen to a lot of books. I should say that first and foremost. I read books. I have books on my nightstand at home. I keep a book in the car. But I listen to books on disc for the most part. So I listen to Kristen Hanna. She is wildly popular, and everyone's telling me to read The Women. But those are the types of books that are coming along. There are a lot of self-help books that are out there. So it's just whatever the trends are. What I worry about is that with AI, anyone can write a book now. And my fear is our team that buys the books is going to be sitting up buying everything that comes along, because with AI, you can really probably create a bestseller. So I worry about that and all of the books that we have to buy, but that information is out there.
I wanted to ask you about art as well, just to take a bit of a left turn. Mm-hmm. I know art is integral to some of these new buildings coming up. Can you talk about some questions about the art in front of the South Park Library? How do you all work with artists? And are all the artists local to Charlotte?
Sure. So we're very fortunate that we have a long history of having art in our libraries. And in fact, for those of you who ever visited Old Main, there was a lot of art in that building. And so a lot of that art will be coming back to New Main. So we're really excited about that. 2 years. So when I moved to Charlotte, I did not know that Charlotte was such an arts community. I just had no idea. You think you know everything. You do your research when you're coming in to look at a job, but you come here and you're like, murals are on every building in this city. And I would love to find funding where I could just capture all of the murals so that people could just find them in one place from our website. But there's art everywhere. And so one of the things that we started doing as we were building new libraries is that we were looking for funding to bring more art into our libraries. So in case you have visited, 3 of our recent locations with art added to them are our Pineville Library, South Boulevard, and also our Plaza Midwood Library, which is currently closed for renovation. But we were able to secure some funding that allowed us to work with local artists to put that art in our buildings. And it's just really exciting. And what it has done is a couple of things. One, it has created more beauty in each of our libraries. It has also given us an opportunity to work with the arts community that we didn't necessarily have before. We're actually treating it as local artists, so we can work with local artists to do that. In fact, we now have artists saying, I do art. You got a wall? And we're like, yeah, we'll figure it out somehow. So we're very fortunate in that regard. The horse that we brought into University City is by a North Carolinian, but not a Charlottean. So, but we're really excited about that, and we will look for more opportunities to bring art into our building. We're very fortunate that we partner with the Arts and Science Council to identify a lot of the artists, and they manage that. The art that you're referencing at South Park Library is a partnership with the city of Charlotte, truthfully. The art is not owned by the library. That is the city of Charlotte's piece of art. They asked for a space to include art, and there's a 3-mile loop in this area that people walk and travel, and so they felt that having some art on this loop would be appropriate, and they asked us for an easement on our property. So the art is on our property, but it is not our art. But it's a wonderful piece. I look at it every time I'm over that way. Kids love it because it's in such bright colors and really exciting. So we're looking forward to having that as another piece of engagement for the community to do so. But we're always looking for those types of opportunities within our system to bring art in.
That's that piece that's kind of got,
yes.
I don't know how you would, wavy almost, or circular kind of.
You're better at it than I am. But yes, I would say there's a loop, there's a circle. Yeah. Art is interesting for those of us who are not artists, and art is interesting for us when we don't own it. So you're looking at it saying, I hope this is a safe piece of art. I hope no one does anything. But it's a beautiful piece. The colors are bright. There is a squiggly piece. There are a couple of pieces. It's not one whole piece. For those of you who have not seen it, there are like 5 pieces to it. And it's different shapes and different sizes, but it's going to capture everyone's attention. I had a customer tell me a couple of weeks ago, she said, my 2 or 3-year-old kid and I came to the library and we never made it in. We sat outside for an hour and just watched them building the art and putting it into place. So it's going to draw a lot of attention and a lot of excitement.
I wanted to ask you about something that I'm sure you get lots of questions about, and that's the decision to do away with library fines that came down. I guess, is that maybe about 3 or 4 years ago?
So it was on the books in terms of making the request to the county when I arrived in 2021, and in the fiscal year coming up 21-22, it was approved by the county to fund. So it's been in place since 2022. For those of you who don't know or who may remember, fines used to be a part of our lives as librarians, in that there was this idea that, and probably rightfully so when libraries were first started, that to increase opportunities for others to use the collection, you needed some incentive to have people return the books, because people didn't always return them on time. So instituting fines was one way that libraries at that day and age thought was the right way to get materials back. What we discovered, though, and we're not the only library who did that. Libraries across the country did this, and we were doing it before I left Seattle. They were doing it. It's hard to stop saying we, but they were doing it before I left Seattle. But what we discovered as a library industry or profession is that, one, it created more barriers than it did opportunities for people to return books. People checked out a book and then they didn't return it on time, and the fines increased such that they wouldn't return to the library at all. So it was a barrier to their using it. Some people didn't have money to return books or to check out books, so that was the case. In some countries, libraries are not free, and so as we see more people moving to our city from other countries, they sometimes have this idea that the library is not a free service. So we wanted to eliminate that. But the biggest thing was that we uncovered is that it's not the incentive that you think it is. People were content to not pay their fines and not use the library, and we didn't want that. So we really worked hard to eliminate that instance, and it has worked well for us. We have people returning to the library. People are now willing to return the books that they had checked out 20 years ago since they know there's no fine. So it's just increasing more opportunities for people to use the library, and we're really excited about that.
Well, that wraps up the questions that I have for you, MT, but I'm going to walk around and see what questions are out in our audience. I'm going to come around with my microphone so that we can capture your question.
What kind of interface does the public library have with the many universities that exist in Charlotte?
Sure. So that was one other thing that I uncovered when I moved here. There are quite a few universities here in Charlotte, and I was really excited about that because I still have friends who are academic librarians, and they think I made the wrong mistake of going into public. So they try to goad me into those conversations, but I'm really excited that we have so many academic libraries here in the area because it does a lot of things. One of the first things that it does for us is it creates opportunities for us to partner with them. We do a lot of programs here at Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, over 20,000 last year. And some of those opportunities, we need subject specialists to come in and speak on a subject or to provide rebuttal to it or whatever. We're dealing, each year we do something on intellectual freedom, and we're very fortunate that the university provides scholars who are vested in intellectual freedom to come and speak with us. So it's really a great opportunity there. With Julia Quinn last year, we had some wonderful opportunities to partner with Queen's University. And it's not just partnering with them in name, but it's partnering with them with opportunities for their students. So the students got the chance to ask the questions of Julia Quinn. So that was really exciting because they were writing majors and they really wanted to learn from someone who was actually skilled in that craft. And so that was just really exciting. So it creates all of those opportunities. It gives us other venues to use should we need bigger spaces than what we can provide in our library. So it's really wonderful to have that many universities here. And they don't compete with each other, I don't think.
I have a question regarding that outside of the new main library. The most recent main library had wonderful inscriptions, quotes on the columns all around. Will the new main library have that same thing?
Yes, they won't have the same quotes. So you might know that as we were closing main library and raising money, everything was for sale. And so quite a few people were interested in those quotes. And so we sold the quotes to them. And it was a really great fundraiser for us. But it was really exciting. But as a nod to that, we will have a space that will be on the 6th Street side. There's a window there, and it will carry 10 inscriptions, quote, or lines from books. So you will see something like that in New Main. You're not the only one who loves those quotes.
Well, MT, thank you so much for being with us today.
I am so happy to be here with you. Thank you.
This episode of the Charlotte Ledger Podcast was produced by Lindsay Banks.
QueenCityPodcastNetwork.com.